Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? I hope you can hear me. We're going to give this just a few minutes and allow people to join, but well, there's Carrie. Hi, Carrie. I tell you, every time I come on Zoom, it's a whole different deal. And they seem to change the rules every single time I do a Zoom session. Um, very few of my buttons seem to be working. But anyway, it's nice to meet you, Carrie.
Yeah, you too, definitely.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot. Is there any? It looks like we're the only two on. Is that right?
No, I've got a few others
Oh, a few
here,
more.
but
Oh, good. Hi, everybody.
I'm having a heck of
Oh,
a time trying to figure out. My display here is completely different than it normally is, and I last week I found that for some reason my Zoom had completely disappeared from my computer. Had to reinstall it, so all my settings were gone. So, but anyway, people are now coming on. I think we've got 4 people here, so we'll maybe give it a couple more minutes and see who else might come. Eric Siegelbaum was supposed to join us as well, but I don't see him here yet. But we'll start about 5 after. So it's supposed to be a happy hour Zoom. Has everybody got their happy? Not too early, right?
well, I was just working in the tasting room, pouring some happy for everybody.
Oh, good. Well, I see some people are getting happy. So I guess I mean, we can start. And Carrie, you're probably a pretty steep learning curve for you too, since I don't know. Have you ever been on a river cruise before? Is this your first?
Mine, no, Freddie and I hosted a river cruise 5 years ago,
Oh,
and
with
along the same route, just going the opposite direction
with
with
Amawater?
Emma Waterways.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's right. I think Freddie did mention that to me. So
yeah.
I'd be curious once we complete this to get your take on the differences between us and or Uniworld and Alma Waterways. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I've heard many things about them, and I've asked them to submit proposals, but they've never really been very competitive. So one of these days, I might give them a shot. So anyway, let's start. We'll just jump in. I'll say who I am. I'm Brad Sully. I'm the owner of Northwest Travel Service. I've been in this business since the early '80s, and with Northwest Travel since 1984. Been through a lot of different iterations in that time. I used to have an office in Bellevue with 19 employees issuing airline tickets and a lot of those things. I went through a stage where I did a lot of sports travel, a lot of Husky football road games and bowl games, a lot of Seattle Mariners when people wanted to see them play. It's been a while. And the last 10, 12 years, I've been pretty heavily into the wine travel aspect of things. I've also been doing garden tours for the past 25 years with a garden writer who used to write for the PI named Marty Wingate, and then with Cisco Morris, which if you're from the Northwest, everybody knows who Cisco is, gardening with Cisco, and that's been a great part of my business. But the wine travel has been fantastic. I mean, to get 120 people on one cruise ship in France, and everybody's friends by the end of 7 days. It's just a lot of fun. So that's where I am now. I since 2004, I've been working out of a home office. Now in Woodinville, I was on the Sammamish Plateau, but now in Woodinville, and really love being in Woodinville. So that's me, and I guess I'll Carrie, if you want to say a few words about you and KB, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So Cave View Estate Winery is actually my family's winery. My parents started planting grapes in 1979 here in Quincy, Washington, right next to the Gorge Amphitheater. We currently have about 100 acres in grapes, and we make 26 wines. Freddie, who is the winemaker, is my husband. He's going to be popping on in a second. He was just finishing up some things for the winery today. And so we were really excited to go on this cruise with you guys. Like I said before, we did go on a cruise and hosted it 5 years ago. That one, we were the only wine hosts on it. This one is really super fun because there's so many different people that you guys get to mingle with, from Succession Winery to Lotta Winery to Eric Siegelbaum. All of them, we know all of them. They're all fantastic people in the area that you guys are going to, or we all are going to. is just gorgeous. And all of the different activities that you get to do in the different villages are just really delightful. Also on our KV end, we're also bringing Mama T. If any of you guys are KV fans, she is a longtime employee who a lot of our wine club members just absolutely love. And also Vincent Carol Bryan, who are my parents, who are the founders of KV and of the Gorge Amphitheater, are also joining the trip. So a lot of great information. Freddie's also really, really good at education and teaching, and everyone becomes such great friends by the end of it. It's just a really fun time.
Well, I'll tell a little bit about this cruise, the itinerary, what to expect. Years ago, I first started out using Viking River cruises, which is the one everybody knows of. If you watch any public television, you've seen numerous ads for Viking River, and they were really the company that started or revamped the river cruise experience in Europe. And years ago in 2005, I had a charter on the same itinerary, same Rhone itinerary. And unfortunately, it was a charter, and Viking put their B team on my ship. And there were some issues that were never really addressed. And 2 years later, I found Uniworld and never really looked back. They are head and shoulders above anything that Viking does. Viking has some brand new ships out there, slightly larger, 200 passengers, which I think is a little large for a river. Uniworld is great food. It's an all-inclusive program, so that your drinks are included, not just at meal times, beer and wine, but liquor is included anytime. The bar is open as late as we want it to be. And when we charter, we're the king of the castle. I mean, we dictate policy. We can do what we want. And again, most of the people are from the Northwest or friends of friends who are coming on the cruise. But there is that commonality that everybody has on this cruise, is that they're interested in wine, and they're from the Pacific Northwest or know somebody from the Pacific Northwest. So Uniworld, my first cruise with them was in 2015 in Bordeaux, and it just blew me away how good they were. They were great. I've had a chef on board who says the food there is as good as any cuisine he's had on a cruise ship. So I continue to solicit proposals from other cruise companies just to see if there's anything better out there, but I keep coming back to Uniworld because I think they're fantastic. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about the itinerary. This, again, I mentioned the cruise is all inclusive, your accommodations, your meals, drinks, shipboard gratuities, taxes, and your airport transportation on embarkation and disembarkation day are all covered by the cruise line. So there's very little that you have left to pay for. So I'll talk a little bit about the itinerary, and I'll just go through this step by step. The cruise begins in Arles, which is in Provence, in the south of France. This is my first time doing a northbound itinerary. Ordinarily, the last few years, we've come southbound. But we switched that out because to get to Paul Bocuse restaurant in Lyon, they're closed on Tuesday, which is the date that the ship calls on Lyon coming southbound. So years ago, when Paul Bocuse was still alive, Chef Thierry took a group to Paul Bocuse, and it was fantastic. I didn't get to go because it was so popular. There was no room for me. So I heard later about how wonderful it was. And so this is a northbound itinerary. We start in Arles. Arles, we've got a couple options there that we offer for shore tours. There's an olive farm tour. There's also a Michelin lunch at a one-star restaurant nearby in Les Baux that we offer. And then the cruise line offers a walking tour of the town of Arles. And then we head north. So I'm just going to go day by day where we are on the itinerary. Avignon is our next stop, which is a very popular destination. You've got obviously the Châteauneuf-du-Pape wine options there. And in addition to what the cruise line does, I put together tastings at 5 or 6 different wineries there for people who want to really immerse themselves in a wine tasting cellar tour. versus doing the city tours or what else they do. There's a kayak tour that goes out to Pont de Garde, which is also very popular. There's a Papal Palace tour. And then moving north, we go to Viviers. We have a truffle farm tour that I developed a few years ago with a family-owned operation, and they do a wonderful job. And then we have lunch in a bistro nearby before we come back to the ship. There's also a walking tour of Viviers. And the one thing we did last time we did this cruise was we had one of the winemakers on board go out and buy a lot of nice bottles of Côte Rôtie wine, and we did a tasting on board. Which was because there is a section there where we're actually cruising. It's a long cruising day, so we break that up and do a little bit of wine tasting. So, and then we're in Tournon Hermitage, which is a fantastic port stop. You've got a visit to Guigal for wine tasting, as well as Chapoutier. There's a Michelin lunch experience called Maison Pique, which is a 3-star Michelin restaurant. That one I don't know if I'll repeat again. It was an expensive option, and I'm not sure. I'm not completely sure the value was there for what they charge for a 12-course lunch, where you typically eat a lot of foam, right? That's a course, is you're eating some sort of flavored foam. So and then there's also a Valrhona chocolate factory there in town, and we do a Valrhona chocolate pairing with wine. And then we're on to Lyon, which is a fantastic place again. Eric Siegelbaum and I think we'll probably have 2 groups that go to lunch at the Paul Bocuse restaurant there, which used to be, again, a 3-star venue, but they kept the 3 stars on there. And when Paul Bocuse died a few years ago, they took one of those stars. I think they kept the star there for sentimental reasons, not to anger the man who brought French cuisine to the forefront for most people. So we'll have an option there for lunch at Paul Bocuse's restaurant. But we also do, there's a bicycle tour in Lyon. There's a morning tour of the market there. We also have a gastronomy tour that we do, and what the cruise line calls a silk weavers walking tour. Lyon is known, has a history of silk weaving, and so there's a tour that they operate there. And our last full day on this cruise is in Beaune. It's the foray that we make into Burgundy itself. So the ship goes as far as Mâcon, and then we take the bus a little over an hour to Beaune, where there is a lot of wine tasting options. We do have a lunch option there at a Michelin listed restaurant. It has no stars, but it's a listed restaurant. They may have the best wine cellar in the town of Beaune, which is something. Called Ma Cuisine is the name of that place. But some of the producers we visit: Domaine Drouhin, Patriarche, Chanson, Louis Jadot, Bouchard, and Champy. So those are ones that we've been to before, and I assume that we will repeat that again. All of the shore tours that both the cruise line offers and the options that I put together will be available to everybody mid-February is when those will be available to book. So so that, in a nutshell, is the cruise. The ship itself, the Catherine, was launched in 2005, I think. It was refurbished during COVID. A lot of these cruise lines took time, since they weren't sailing, to spend some money updating their ships. It's 150 passengers. I have because there are a lot of singles that typically want to come on these cruises, and most cruise lines charge 200% of the share rate. So I have allocated 5 of the classic cabins for single pricing at a discount. So ordinarily the ship, I think, was 159, but with our group it's 150. So which places that now at a mid-size. There are smaller ships, but there are much larger ships on the river. So I do have maybe I'll wait and to bring up the chart here with the cabin differences if anybody wants to see that a little later in the program. But and hi, Freddie, I see you've joined us.
Let me get mute turned off.
Yeah. Now it's back on.
Ready.
There we go. And now can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, you're there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Sorry I was late. Running an errand that ran long.
Well, glad to see you again. This cruise is one that I've done many times. It's a great time. There is no better river itinerary when push comes to shove as far as quality of wine, history, architecture, cuisine than the Rhone River. I've been to Bordeaux as well, and Bordeaux is a wonderful wine destination, but it's lacking in the overall touristic aspect. You don't have the same architecture, you don't have the same history, it's just wine is the one reason you'd go to Bordeaux as opposed to Burgundy and Provence on this itinerary. So I would why don't I ask now if there are any questions? Anybody have a question? All right, well, then I'll continue on, assuming that we can also handle questions at the end. Again, I'm trying to find my share information here so that I can bring up the diagrams. Okay, is this sharing appropriately? Can you see the charts?
I'm only seeing like your slideshow.
All right, let's
Oh, there you go.
okay.
There it is.
Good. So what we're looking at here, the first cabin, and there's a wide range of cabin accommodations on this cruise. And the one thing that I'm always doing is talking people down from the suites, which, you know, there are some people who want the extra room and so on. So let's start at the entry level cabins on this cruise. This is a classic category. It's on the lower deck of the ship, so it's actually below the water level. You do have a small window, and this is an ideal cabin for people that know they're never going to be in their cabin. They're always going to be somewhere else. The difference between a river cruise and an ocean cruise is that the public areas and the shore are literally steps away from your door. So you're going to be spending most of your time in one of the two lounges that we have, or the top deck, or you're going to be ashore somewhere doing things. The ship is always docked in the center of the town, so you don't have far to go to get to a restaurant or a winery. There's also they have 10 or 12 bicycles that are available for you to just hop on anytime you want one to take for a spin and go somewhere in town. So this is the entry level cabin. It's 162 square feet. This is, if my wife's not going on a cruise with me, this is where I am. If she's on the cruise with me, then she wants a window that opens. So we're usually in a French balcony cabin, or the deluxe cabin if one is available. So again, that's the classic category. Then we go up to a French balcony. And so it does have a picture window, and the top part of this window does slide down to let fresh air in. It's slightly larger at 194 square feet. So again, fairly large cabins for a cruise. The nice thing, what I like about the Catherine and the other Uniworld ships is there's a lot of room available for your clothing, plenty of drawer space and hanger space, which is always nice. So this is the next deck up on the mostly on Avignon, but there are four cabins, or two cabins on the Camargue deck that are available in this category. When we go up to the deluxe balcony, which again, it's kind of a misnomer on these river cruises, is they will call these a balcony, although they're not a balcony. The window does open. It does push out a little bit in off the ship so that you actually have a seating area, but it is not an open air balcony. It's the same size as what you have here in the French balcony at 194 square feet, and it's one deck above on the Camargue deck. And then you go up to a suite, which is again larger, plenty of space, but again, you've got windows that open, but you do not necessarily have a balcony. And again, I want to stress that you don't need one. The upper deck has a lot of seating, It's really a good place to spend your time, especially when you're going through a lock. And then you've got the Grand Suite, and for whatever reason, Uniworld did not have a picture of the Grand Suite on their website, just the bathroom and the designated area or the outline of what the suite looks like. But again, there's one of those on board, 410 square feet. Right now, every category of cabin is currently available, although I think somebody is looking at the Grand Suite right now. So. And then just a couple of photos from the Uniworld website. This is the Suzanne dining room, and you'll eat both or all your meals here. Breakfast and lunch are a buffet. Dinner is a seated meal, and there's no assigned seating. So what will happen is if you enter the dining room, and they will seat you at a 2 top or up to 8, depending on where you want. If you want to sit with friends, it's best if you arrive in the dining room at the same time. And dinners are typically 7 to 7:30, but you can come later if you want as well. This is the Leopard Bar, which is in the aft end of the ship on the top deck. And the Leopard Bar is great because it's a nice place to go have a quiet drink, but it also lends itself well to a private dining experience. And what we do each night is that we assign you to, based on your choice, whether you want to have dinner with Andrew or Carrie and Freddie or Eric or Brock and Erica, you choose which one. And so one night of the cruise, you will have the opportunity to dine in this dining room with 20 to 22 people. It's a semi-private dining experience, but it is nice because you can't see it from here, but on the opposite end, there's all picture windows looking off the back end of the ship. And so those are the dining areas on the cruise. And I'm trying to think if we don't have any other photos to show you, and we went over dinner. And so so that'll give you an idea of the ship. Somebody's got a question. Okay. All right. And so I'm always asked, are we shipping wine over? And my question or what I haven't always done that. I haven't done it in the past. We did it one time, and John Bigelow at JM brought a wine suitcase with 12 bottles that he was pouring liberally throughout the ship. But I think what I'm going to do is ship a case of each winemaker's wine to the ship so that we can either do it informally or do a head-to-head comparison, whatever the winemakers want to do. But it's, believe it or not, it's a very expensive option to ship wine from here to Europe. It's around 300 euros a case, but I think it makes sense that we do that, since the winemakers are here to promote their product, and it would be great to have some of that on board. So we will definitely do that. Okay, yeah, shipping wine home. It's interesting about shipping wine home. The nice thing about the Rhone Valley versus Bordeaux and some other wine. I just came back from Portugal, and they haven't fully gotten in the swing of shipping wine home to the US. Some do, some don't. Some charge astronomical amounts that want to do it. There is a company over there called Mailboxes, etc., which used to be here before UPS bought them out. They are probably the one group that ships wine home from Europe to the US. Some of the producers you go to will ship it, some will include it in their price, and some will charge you usually about 10 to 12 euros a bottle to ship wine home. I've asked Mailboxes, etc., to come join us on a Sunday morning or on a Saturday when the cruise is ending to see about shipping wine home, and they absolutely refuse because it is France after all, and they don't have a fantastic work ethic. They are only open Monday through Friday, and they will not work on a Saturday, Sunday. So my suggestion would be that if the winery that you're buying from will ship, go that route. If they won't ship, then You can take it yourself to a mailboxes, etc., as long as it's Monday through Friday. And there are these offices just about everywhere we go, especially when the cruise ends in Lyon. There is, and there's also one in Beaune, so you can take your wine there, or you can invest in one of these wine suitcases and pack 12 bottles home on your own. I always travel with a waterproof wine sleeve, reusable. It's got Velcro and it's got a Ziploc, so that, and I've used one, I don't know, 40 times. They're fantastic. So that I always have a couple, I always have room to bring a couple bottles home. And it's safe in this wine sleeve. If the bottle breaks, it's never happened. But if the bottle breaks, then none of the liquid's going to get on your clothing. So you might, I know they sell those here. Surprisingly, could not find a single place in Europe that sell these wine sleeves, and I don't understand why that's the case. But I'm not sure. Okay, so anyway, the long and the short of it is, yes, wine can be shipped home. It can be an expensive process, but I would say most wineries in the Rhone Valley will do it for you for a fee. It is possible, whereas before it wasn't. But I think they've caught on to the fact that Americans want their wine shipped home. So the wine. Okay, I'll go in order here. The prices of the cruise are posted at nwtravel.com. You can, there are actually two Rhone cruises going next year. This is the second in that list because the first one I announced early, and when it sold out, I added the second cruise, but it is there. I keep the availability updated. I can tell you the entry level for the deluxe or the classic cabin is $35.99 per person. And then it goes up from there. I think it's $54.99 for the deluxe balcony. And then for the, for the French balcony, and then $59.99 per person for the deluxe balcony. And the suites, I don't know right off the top of my head, but the prices are there. There's also a link. If you click on Reserve Now, you fill in the form that generates an email to me with all the information I need, and then I send a confirmation with the cabin assignment right back to you. The great thing about chartering the ship is that the pricing is less than what you'll find on the website because we're buying in bulk. We're able to pass on some of those discounts to the cruise passenger. The other nice thing is that when it comes to changing cabins or upgrading to other levels, because I control the inventory, I can assign people cabins. I can move people from one cabin to the other. If a higher level cabin comes available and somebody wants to move up, that's a possibility. And it's also nice that in years past, if somebody has to cancel for whatever reason, and I've already had some issues with the first cruise with people that have had to cancel, that I've been able to refund their deposit back to them and rebook other people on the cruise. That's the nice thing about a charter, is that I'm not beholden to the cruise line to work with their cancellation policies. If I'm able to resell your cabin, then you'll get a full refund. And historically, over the last 12 years, that has always been the case, and been pretty lucky. And COVID kind of threw a wrench in that, but even with that, we were pretty successful about moving people around, having had to reschedule that cruise two different times. Okay, so prices, the locks. Okay, I'm not sure about are the locks open? I don't know what that means. There are, I think, 5 locks that the ship goes through from Arles to all the way up to Macon. And so typically the cruise lines have to schedule those reservations are made months ahead of time. We get there at a certain hour and we go through the lock. I'm not sure what you mean by open, but if you can elaborate on that, we'll get back to that later. Okay, no, the painful, no, right now the deposit is $1,000 per person. And the second deposit is scheduled for July 1st, which is another $2,000 per person, with the exception of the lower level cabin, which is only 1,000 per person. And then the balance is due January 10th of next year. And so food allergies, yeah, the cruise line is great about working out gluten issues. We've got vegetarians, vegans, pescatarians. They will work out anything you want, and they're great. If you've ever been on a cruise, it's always amazing to me how the wait staff knows who you are, knows your food issues, and they never have to ask again. You tell them one time, and they never have to ask. And it's the same with these guys. They can address any food issue you have. Now, the one thing I will tell you is that if you're a vegetarian and you don't do peanuts, and there are a lot of things that you don't do, the Michelin lunch experiences are not for you. I will tell you right now that the Michelin restaurants typically will take any special request and throw it away. So you probably don't want that. So, but yeah, they're great with working with gluten issues and just about anything else you can think of. Okay, well, that's a very good question about the locks. So it probably wasn't a lock issue, it was probably a water level issue. And what happens a lot of times on these river cruises is that you either have too much water in the spring or too little water in the later fall and winter, which is why I choose May every year. I have never had, the water levels are perfect, never had an issue where a ship couldn't get somewhere, either because of high water through a bridge or not enough water to run the locks. I know that's also a problem in England, that they really conserve water on the locks, and but it's never been an issue for me in May. A couple of years ago, you may have heard all these winter markets cruises in November, December. None of them were traveling for 3 months. Not a single cruise went. Your cruise turned into a bus tour, which I had a group. It wasn't a chartered group, but it was 40 people. We were in Prague beforehand for a 3-day pre-cruise tour, and prior to that, for the first 6 or 8 or 12 weeks, not a single ship had left. And on the bus, on our way from Prague to join the ship in Passau, I got the text saying they were sailing. They had snow and rain in the mountains, and so we were the first cruise to leave Passau for Budapest in 2.5 months. And so it was fantastic. But things can change on a dime over there. And one of the reasons the ship no longer goes all the way up to Chalon in Burgundy was because they had an issue years ago where one of the ships had the entire bridge torn off, trying to get under a bridge, have the entire top part of the cruise ship torn off because of water levels going under a particular bridge. So they don't go up there anymore. But it's a good question. The last thing you want your cruise to turn into is a bus tour. And so again, April, I wouldn't do this cruise, and in September, I wouldn't do this cruise for that very reason. The risk is too great, especially now with the weather patterns they've been having in Europe. But May should not be a problem. Okay, that was good. I don't think there are no more questions.
I would want to make a comment quickly, Brad. I wanted to touch on the fact when you said that you spend very little time in your room, and that is, well, for us, it was 100% true. When we went in 2017, we literally went to our room to change, to shower, and to sleep. And other than that, we were walking around town. We were with people on the upper decks and in the lounges, and it was the room truly was for showering, changing, and sleeping. So yeah, just wanted to say that to make people feel like it is 100% true what you said about that.
If you're spending time in your room, you're doing something wrong. There's no reason to be in there. Oh, and I was going to say too, I didn't get into the evening program. So typically on a cruise day, you'll have breakfast that starts anywhere from 6:30 and goes till 9 usually. Shore tours, typically morning tours usually go out around 9:30. for a city walking tour or a wine tasting, and then you're back to the ship for lunch. And then the afternoon tours will go out 1:30, 2 o'clock, and then you're back around 5 o'clock. So you've got a little bit of cocktail time there. That's typically when we would have the winemakers or Eric have their discussion for an hour or so, and talk a little bit about wine in general. Wine, there are so many different regions to talk about, specifically in the Rhone Valley, but also talk about their own wine and their own philosophies of making wine. And then we'll have dinner, and then in the evening there's typically some sort of entertainment. And what we've done in the past, which is always a big hit, and it may not seem like it would be now, is that the cruise line has always had what they refer to as their disco night, right? So they do have a DJ, and they're playing music, and people are dancing, and it never fails that one night always turns into 2 or 3. Because even this Portugal tour I was at just this last month, there were 60 people in our group, and we had 45 people out dancing at one time, which amazed me. We had people from the Ama Waterways cruise coming over, joining our party, because they said their group was so old. And not that we're spring chickens or anything. I mean, we're not all that young, but I think we were maybe a little younger at heart than the people from the Ama Waterways boat. But so yeah, there's also a lot of evening entertainment. The cruise line brings some things on board too. They've had like in Portugal, they had a flamenco. They have like a Folies Bergère that comes on board, and they do some dancing. They also do the savoring of the wine. So there's some evening entertainment too. It's not what you find on a large cruise ship. It's not a Broadway review by any stretch of the imagination, but there is some local transportation, and sometimes even just some classical music that they bring on board that for people. So okay, rooms.
One more thing real quick, Brad, too. You mentioned coming back to the ship for lunch. And I want to say also that a number of times we were having such a good time in town when we were just walking around and doing our own thing, that we just found a cool spot and had lunch there. Obviously that was out of pocket, and lunch is included on the boat. But I'm just saying, you don't have to go back to the boat for lunch, because there are so many of these towns. There are so many cool little cafes and bistros and places that are worth exploring.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know, I know a lot of people don't speak French. I have tried over the years to speak French, but I just kind of butcher it. But the deal too is you should never let the lack of your French language knowledge keep you from sitting at a bistro. I have my orientation letter that I send out with the documentation has a lot of information specifically of how you, for people that haven't, how you go about eating in a French cafe, and the important things to remember that when you're there. But knowing how to speak the language is a very small part of the experience. So and I know this last cruise, I think out of the 60 people we had, there were 8 people who had never been to Europe before, which is always nice to be able to take people over that have never ever been there before. So yeah, for single accommodations, what I've done is, since the pricing the cruise line gives to me is based on every cabin filled with 2 people. So I assign the lower cabins, the entry level classic cabins, for single entry. So anything above that, you can still occupy as a single. And I actually have that on the other cruise, or some people are paying 200% to occupy a suite or an upper level cabin by themselves. So it's just that you're free to occupy any cabin you want as a single. It's just that the only discounts are available for the classic cabin. But again, like I said, you don't need much more than that. If the expectation is you're going to be sitting on your balcony and enjoying a cocktail while you're cruising, that's fine. But you're better off on a deck chair up top or in the lounge. And the one thing people don't realize on a river cruise is that at night you're docked, and so you're either looking at a bulkhead or you're rafted next to the ship next to you. So the benefit of your balcony disappears. your shades are drawn because you want it that way, because there's really nothing to look at once the ship stops moving and these other ships tie up next to you. Okay. Oh, well, okay. Here's a question about Uniworld in Egypt. I was actually on a Uniworld ship in Egypt in January to check things out. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's interesting because when I was in Egypt with Uniworld, I was rafted next to a lot of different ships. No, typically in France, they're all shared docks. And so you're going to be tied up next to a Viking ship or an AMA waterway ship. And in some cases, you're walking across two ships to get to your third ship. So you're always rafted next to somebody. I've never seen a case where you weren't rafted next to another ship. So it's not really it's not a big deal. Again, the only thing you lose is is your view out the window. But again, you're out at dinner or dancing in the disco afterwards, so you're not missing anything. So, okay. I think I'm keeping up with the questions. Trying to think of anything else that I need to know or that I need to let you know about.
Oh, hey, Brad, I do have something. So Dean Church just came on,
Yeah.
and he is a wonderful friend of KV and a personal friend of Freddie and I. And I know he sent an email to you today. So they would like to, I think they actually booked today. So he just got on a little bit late here. And he's saying hi to everybody.
Okay.
So they are wonderful, wonderful people. I'll make a great, I don't know if you can send him a little bit more information later on or whatnot, but.
Okay, I think I've talked to Sherry a few times. I think Sherry has a couple people coming on this cruise, right?
No, we were just with them this weekend and we just introduced them to them, just told them about this yesterday or the day before. He just emailed you this morning for the first time. So that must be a different Sherry.
Okay. All right, well, here's another question. Okay, yeah, a question about performing on the cruise. Send an email to me and let's have a talk after this. My email is brad@nwtravel.com. But yeah, I'd be happy to talk to you about it. And again, too, if anybody has any questions here that they didn't get to me, send me an email, brad@nwtravel.com. I would also encourage you, if you visit my website, to sign up for my newsletter, which I send out, try to limit it. I don't want to send anybody too much information, but these cruises I'm doing every year, but I take a group every year to Tuscany. So France is great, but we go everywhere else. Oh, the Champagne Post Cruise. People are asking me about Champagne Post Cruise. Yeah, this is a program that I've done many times before. What happens is it's limited to 40 people on the coach from the ship to Champagne itself, to Rhone. But once we get there, we split the group up into groups of 14 people. So when you're doing your Champagne House visits, there's only 14 of you in a group. I discovered a company a couple of years ago based in Paris, who did a fantastic job with us last year as far as setting our meals up and not only going to some of the well-known champagne producers, but also some of the small family-owned places that you've never heard of that are fantastic too. And some places they're doing it all by hand, not an automated process at all. And so the Champagne tour, we stay at a Marriott affiliated property that is a great hotel. It's really the one thing about Champagne itself is there aren't a lot of good hotels in the area. So when this new Marriott popped up a couple of years ago, I was thrilled to be able to stay there. And I think there's still plenty of room on that Champagne tour. But I would, the first time I went there, I've never been a Bubbles fan. I am now, because I learned so much about that and had so much good champagne versus a lot of the stuff you find around here that's maybe not so good. But they sold me. I'm a big Bubbles fan now, so I will get to go to Champagne twice next year. So yeah, sorry for me.
So Brad, I'm going to take that as a challenge, and I'm going to bring you 2 bottles of KV, our sparkling pink and bubbly, and our Blanc de Blanc, which are both fantastic sparkling wines, which of course is what we have to call champagne here in the States.
Yeah, well, okay, I'll take you up on that challenge.
All righty.
Trying to think of anything else. I don't see any other questions. I disappointed that Eric didn't join us, but I'll ask him about that. We may set up a future Zoom call with Eric Siegelbaum. For those of you who don't know, he's a wine educator, advanced sommelier. I met him at Taste Washington this last year through Terry Shields at Cote Bonneville. And he's just very entertaining and knowledgeable, not just about the wines, but also about food service. And so he can tell you what you need to know in a very entertaining way. And the minute I met him, I said, I have to figure out a way to get this guy on a ship. And so he's coming on board, and I think he's coming at a bargain price for me. Frankly, I'm really thrilled to be working with him, to the point where we're already talking about possibly doing something to Croatia in 2025. So but I think everybody will enjoy him. He's very funny and knowledgeable, and again, it's a shame he's not here with us, but you'll all have, if you go on the cruise, you'll have a chance to meet him. So
yeah, I'd actually like to piggyback on that too. Terry and I have known Eric for, oh boy, probably like 15 years as well. And it's been really cool because we've watched him as he's the ranks, starting out as a sommelier in Seattle, and kind of really moving through the ranks of the wine world to the point where he was 40 under 40, the top 40 under 40 people in the United States, people in the wine industry. He does classes at the Smithsonian, wine education classes. So and not only that, he's just super personable and approachable, and he brings wine knowledge down to a level that you're at, no matter which level you are at. So he removes all of the pretense from wine and makes it very, very accessible for anybody, no matter what level you're at.
Yep, I agree. He's a pretty snappy dresser too. So
he is.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm trying to think of anything else. We'd love to have everybody come on board. Again, this is not the river cruise experience is so completely different than anything you may be associated with. I will probably never get on another big ship again. Even if I wanted to, my wife said, absolutely not. It's not going to happen. The river cruise experience is a fantastic way to see Europe. It's a great way to do a very slow tour of a very specific part of France. And I think it would be, I guarantee you go on one of these cruises and you will be back on another one. So I guess if that's, do you have anything to add at the end, Carrie or Freddie?
I will add a little bit here. I forgot when I was introducing other people in the beginning to actually say what my role is at KV, which is I'm the events and marketing manager, besides being Freddie's wife and the daughter to Vince and Carol. When we went 5 years ago on the cruise, Freddie and I really took it upon ourselves, especially for all the people that are kind of coming under the KV umbrella, but to everybody on board, even people that weren't part of that, to really make sure that we are not just sitting with our own little group, that we are sitting down with you guys, that we're having meals with you, that we're going on to some of the tours with you, and that we're always available and accessible, talking about wine, both in Europe, but also in Washington, and the histories, and just life in general. When Brad was talking about the upper deck, I can't even tell you how many wonderful evenings we had last time we went, with chairs in the moonlight or in the sun during the day. And just, you get groups of 10, 20, 30 people that some of them just came by themselves and some of them came in groups of 2. And by the end of the cruise, people, were all exchanging phone numbers and email addresses. And I also do not like big, huge ships, cruise ships. I have experienced that before, and I absolutely love the river cruises. It's a very different feeling. It's very intimate. If you have on big ships, if you feel like you're out to sea all the time, you don't feel that. You can literally swim to shore. You're on a river and you're constantly, I really feel like you're constantly on land and doing activities. And when you are on board the boat, going by, there's so many hills and whatnot, and you see all the villas and these beautiful churches and things. Just the cruise up the river is really neat. And the one thing I hadn't realized before going on the Rhone River was the number of locks that Brad was talking about before. Different. I've been through the Panama locks, obviously different than that, and different than here in Washington State, going through our own little Seattle locks. But it's really neat, and watching the process of that, and just realizing and just understanding a different part of the world and how they all get around and get along, and that every little village along that river is uniquely different from one another. There's areas that have the chocolate factory and areas that you see all the vines, and that's really neat too, just to see how that changes as you go along. Freddie, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, just that I was actually totally taken by surprise at how many people we met, aside from our Cave B group, that have actually, like, from all different parts of the country, that have actually come back to Cave B, had never heard of Washington wine even, and decided to make Washington part of their next wine adventure, and have come to say hi at Cave B. It was really, really cool. So it is just it's a completely different experience than, I'll put it this way. When in 2017, when we went, we really didn't know what to expect. I mean, we thought, okay, it's going to be a cool adventure, but we had no idea we would love it as much as we did. It was surprising to both of us that we would like being on the boat like that. And I don't remember if it was mentioned on this call, but someone mentioned it the best way in saying that the best thing about doing a river cruise is that basically your hotel is just traveling with you. You don't have to pack and unpack to do like typical traveling. Like, typically when you travel in Europe, you're packing and unpacking into different hotel rooms as you go from place to place, town to town, city to city. In this place, it's so cool because you don't have to pack and unpack. You don't have to take the time to check in and out of hotels. You're just hopping on and off your floating hotel, and going into the town and seeing what the place has to offer. So that was probably one of the coolest things about it, I thought.
I do have one suggestion, because we hope to see all of you on board the ship. And my suggestion is, at least for us, when Freddie and I have traveled, I'm horrible on a plane for sleeping. And so I never get any sleep for the entire flight over there. And so we've gone to Europe many times, but have found it very valuable, especially going on the river cruise for ourselves. And you can do this differently, but we usually fly in the day before and get a good night's sleep at a hotel just near the airport. And then by the time we get onto the cruise, with a lot of people around, we want to be able to instantly talk and not be yawning in all your faces and whatnot. So just something to keep in mind when you're thinking about that. Come 1 or 2 days before. Last time we ended the cruise, where you guys are going to be getting on, and that's a really cool city to see as well, down there in Marseille. So just something to keep in mind.
All right. Okay, well, I guess there are no other questions. Thank you, Freddie and Carrie, for jumping on tonight. And I hope to see you all on a cruise. If you have any specific questions for me, if you want to make your booking, give me a call. You can call me at my office, which is 425-375-2676, or email's always best for me. I can respond day or night. I work from my home office, so I'm never really off. I'm always here. So Yeah, thanks for taking the time to join us tonight.
Yeah.
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Thank
Okay.
you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks.
Thanks, Brad.